Yeah. So that's it live. People should just start joining in a minute. I've got one person in. Huh? That's people starting to join now anyway, so you can probably start talking yet.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Borders Distillery, the home of Kerr's gin. With me today is Finlay Street, one of our up-and-coming distillers, and we're going to talk you through our gin and how we make it and take you on a wee virtual tour of the distillery. The product, Kerr's gin. Mr. Kerr was a botanist from Hoyk who travelled the world, the Far East, and brought back about 238 new species to the UK, the most famous of which perhaps is the tiger lily. That some of you may also know of Kerria japonesa, that yellow flower that's in every garden centre in the United Kingdom. Celebrated man in Kew Gardens, not so much in Hoyt, where he was largely forgotten until we rediscovered him, but he provided the inspiration for our product. We make our gin using locally grown barley, and we process it, as you'll see shortly, in the distillery, and then we flavour it in a slightly different way with 11 different botanicals. What we're looking for when we're making the gin is, and as you pour yourself a gin and tonic, I suggest that you just smell it slightly before you pour it into your glass, or until you pour your tonic in. And what we're hoping for you get is a malty sensation, maybe some pear droppy stuff, if you remember that from when you were young. Notes of juniper, coriander, and eventually on the palate you'll get licorice as well. It's cold up here in Scotland today, and anyway I wanted to make you a gin and tonic without ice, because we think that is a good way of understanding the flavour profile. So we start with a measure of Kerr's into our glass. We add...
John, do I just speak up a little bit?
We add a rondelle of orange to the glass before we add the tonic. We think that orange is the perfect mix with this gin. It adds a sort of sweet citrusy note, which we think really brings out the flavours and the taste in the product. And then any good tonic will do, but we are using today Fever Tree Mediterranean. Again, we think it complements nicely the orange and the gin together. And my preferred serve is I tend to do about 2 parts of tonic to 1 part of gin.
It's saying that they can't hear you very well. I'm not sure if that's...
1 part of gin, and then quick stir, and cheers. We'll now go and have a look at the distillery. I'll follow Finlay in, and then we'll swing round and we'll talk about how we make the product. Finlay. So, this is us in the still house inside the Borders Distillery. As you can see, lots of copper, lots of open glass, lots of light and space. The whole place was constructed around ideas of being able to make many products in the same hall, but also to minimize energy for lighting. We ventilate using louvers. We have no electricity for ventilation. And as you can see, Finlay will show you a perforated floor. That meant that we used 100 tons less of cement in construction, and everything's being based around this idea of local sourcing, sustainable production, and skilled labour. So for us, the gin making process really starts at the end of the whiskey making process. So this is where we collect our distilled from barley. Most of this will go into casks, which will eventually become Scotch whisky after 3 years. But some of it we keep behind for rectification, reprocessing, redistillation in our special gin still. The point about this is that we can, using entirely local ingredients, rework our original production to the highest possible specification, so that when we move into making our gin, we've always got the same source of materials, the same recipe, the same mash bill, and that gives us consistency of flavour over time. And Finn is going to show you now the Carter Head still. Now, this type of still here, this is called a pot still, and this is an Arabic invention, many centuries old, and it's made of copper because copper is malleable, copper is a good heat conductor, and also there's an interesting chemical reaction with copper and ethanol which strips out all the unwanted flavours and all the unwanted alcohols that you don't want to drink. In 1830, an Irishman called Coffey came up with a different version of this technology, and he called it column still. And the idea of a column still is, whereas this is batch production, so you use it, you switch it off, a bit like a kettle, that is continuous production. So as long as you're feeding in your raw material and your steam, you're continuously distilling. Now Coffey, an interesting man, he had 2 apprentices, and they were called the Carter brothers. And they came up with a slightly different idea, which we've since adapted. So if you come closer, so this is the column part of the still. And where you see this bump and the lighter colour of copper, that's a water jacket. So the Carter idea was to use their boss's column system technology, but improve it. And the reason why it improves it is that the water condenses the steam and it comes back down the still, only to be pushed up again by the pressure of the steam inside the still. And that means we're getting much more contact with the liquid and with copper. And that's important because the more copper contact we have, the cleaner the spirit and the truer expression of flavour you will get. Just to make sure we're getting enough, we fill the column with this stuff. And this is called sacrificial copper. And that shape is deliberate. So the idea behind that shape is you get the maximum surface area contact between copper and steam. Again, the whole objective is producing this very clean, very subtle original spirit. Once it's through the column, it then goes up above you and into the next part of the process, which is where we impart flavour to our spirit using botanicals. But we don't do it in that kind of conventional way. So we filled steam copper baskets full of botanicals, in our case 11. And what's interesting about these, because they've been steamed, they have a very interesting texture to them. Now you can do this at home. If you take a packet of frozen peas, boil half and steam half in one of those bamboo steamers, and just feel the peas after the boiling and after the steaming, you'll find that the steamed pea has a very dry texture. And this is a fantastic way of extracting flavour from our botanicals. Now, for those of you that bake, you will know that from the same ingredients you can make a light, a heavy or a medium sponge. So in our case, we understand that the chemical volatility of juniper is different to the chemical volatility of bitter orange, which is different again to coriander, which is different again to orris and licorice. And by knowing these chemical volatilities and adjusting the ratios of our ingredients, we can change the flavour of the gin. Even more importantly, by knowing the chemical volatility and not adjusting the ratios, we can produce the same product time and time again. And that's what we're trying to do here in the distillery, is make sure that every bottle that goes out to you is the same as the previous bottle and the same as the next bottle you buy. It's a key part of our process. Now, running this piece of equipment is not easy. It takes a lot of skill, and over the last year or two, our distillers have become very adept at using it. The other thing I would say about use of these botanicals is that because we're very focused on being a zero waste facility and sustainability, all of these are recycled into compost, and our next project is to use them for other products within the distillery. It's a key part of our ethos and our thinking, and we hope over time to introduce new products based on these spent botanicals. So I just want to talk you through what we regard as the key flavour elements in our gin. So coriander grown in Hampshire, bitter orange from Spain, Angelica root from the Far East, lemon from Greece, and cassia bark also from the Far East. If you're drinking the gin right now, you'll probably have noticed a little bit of a back flavour, which is the licorice. Don't have that here to show, but we add the licorice to give that sort of sweet spice once you've got the drink in your mouth mixed up with the tonic. And it's this combination of flavours that we settled on after many, many, many attempts. It took a long time to get this recipe right, but we're very pleased with the outcome, and we think that we've got a distinctive barley-based gin fit for your Saturday afternoon. So we'll just go back into the bar.
Good.
So this is the bottom of the still. You'll notice a similarity between the pot and the pot stills we showed you before, and that's deliberate. This means that we can make a little or a lot depending on what we like. And after we've made the gin, we then settle it in these stainless steel tanks for about 4 weeks. And that's to let the flavours meld, that's to let the spirit settle prior to bottling. So there we have it, the Carter head still, an invention from the 19th century being used in the 21st century in the old manufacturing town of Hawick in the borders of Scotland.
About 15 minutes.
Thank you very much for joining us on this short tour of the Borders Distillery, and thank you to Layla for organising this afternoon for us and all the other fine distillers you're about to watch. I'd like to thank Finlay for all his hard work in filming this, and if you have any questions or any inquiries, please come to our site www.thebordersdistillery.com and just ask a question. We'll be delighted to answer you. And to celebrate this afternoon, Finlay has posted on the Facebook the discount code so that you can purchase a bottle for yourselves. Thank you so much indeed for your time and attention. Goodbye.